Story time about how I found out that my boyfriend was cheating on me with his homeboy. For a little background information, I was 18 and in my senior year of high school. I met my boyfriend Kevin in our junior year and then we started dating our senior year of high school. We had a really good relationship and we would talk almost 24/7. We would text each other all throughout class, we would call each other every night, stay on the phone for hours. We would even skip classes together and I thought that we were deeply in love. The only time that we wouldn't hang out was whenever his best friend needed him. Like he would skip dates that we had planned and stuff like that. And I honestly just thought that he was being a good friend. But my best friend Taylor suspected that he might secretly be gay and cheating on me with his best friend. And I personally thought the only reason why she thought this was because his best friend was openly gay. But I didn't believe this because him and I were also intimate with each other. But then I started noticing some really weird stuff. If the one day while we're sitting at lunch, Kevin and his best friend are sitting next to each other and I see them holding hands under the table. Asked him about this, he said it was because his best friend had social anxiety. Fast forward, the one time we're all at this party and I saw them kiss. Like for part 2 about how I found out that my boyfriend was cheating on me with his homeboy. So like I said, the one time I see them holding hands under the table and whenever I asked my boyfriend why he was doing that, he was like, oh, it's because my best friend has social anxiety. And I'm like, okay. And then fast forward, we're all at this party and I see them kissing. And when I confronted him about it, he was like, oh, like we just like to play pranks like that sometimes. And I believed him because I really didn't think that my boyfriend was cheating on me with his homeboy. So fast forward to his birthday, I wanted to surprise him, so I went to his house, and to my shock, I see Kevin hooking up with his best friend. And when I confronted him about it, he was like, no, like, I swear, I'm straight, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, bro, why are you lying to me? Like, there's no reason to lie anymore, I caught you. So at that point, I literally just left his house and I blocked him, and I even begged my parents to let me move schools because I was so embarrassed. And from now on, I learned to not trust guys who are too close to their friends. Like, any guy who chooses their friend over me now is sus. Storytime about my psychotic ex-girlfriend. So a little background information, I was 22 years old and I was working and I had started dating this girl who we're going to call Maddie. And she told me that before we got together, she had been involved in a relationship with a minor, which kind of threw me off, but I decided to look past it. But I found it a little bit sus that she was still going to bonfires that were being thrown by high schoolers. But that's besides the point. Now, both her and I's families were not wealthy at all, but she ended up telling me that she was pregnant, so my family and I let her move in with us. From day one, my family tried warning me about this girl. They were like, yeah, Maddie leaves the house dressed provocatively. We just think it's weird that she's pregnant and she's not going out with you whenever she's dressed like this. Well, whenever my family told me about her leaving dressed like that, I called her, and she was claiming that she went to go and visit a family member. Later on, I found out that she was trying to cheat on me. After this caused us to have tons of arguments. This is whenever I realized this girl was psycho. My mom had offered to drive her and I to her ultrasound appointment, like for part 2. Storytime about my psycho ex-girlfriend. So like I said, the one day my mom offers to drive us to her ultrasound appointment, so her and my mom come and pick me up, and my girlfriend Maddie's acting super strange. So my mom and I, we asked her, like, do you not want to go? Like, do you want to leave? And she's like, no, everything's fine. And then whenever we get to her appointment, so my mom and I are waiting in the waiting room. And then all of a sudden, 6 police officers rush into the doctor's office, and they're all standing around me with their hands on their guns. And they said that they were told by Maddie that I was holding her against her will, and a bunch of other shit that wasn't true. So when my mom explained to them what was going on, they let me go. But then later I found out that Maddie had called her mom asking her to call the cops just to say that so that way she would be able to leave, because she was tired of dating me. So at this point, I'm like, whatever, fast forward, she has the baby, and then she calls me and tells me that it's mine. Let me tell y'all something, she was pregnant way before her and I even started dating. Like for part 3. Part 3 about my psychotic ex. So like I said, the police pull up and then my mom tells them what actually happened and we're like, all right, we're done with this. So fast forward, when the kid's born, she texts me and she's like, yo, the baby's yours. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because I'm going to be honest, y'all, she got pregnant way before her and I even got together. And if the baby was mine and she had it whenever she did, that baby would literally have came out without, like, nose, eyes, anything. So then she starts pulling me into a bunch of drama. She uses this guy to try and scare me. And he's like, oh, you're a deadbeat dad. I'm going to come and I'm going to F you up. And then I start getting mail at my house from her. One of them was from CPS, and then another one was that she had a warrant out for her arrest. So fast forward, I end up getting married to my wife, who I love so much. And she's still trying to start stuff with me. Y'all, this is 6 years after that whole situation. She keeps reaching out to my wife, trying to be friends with her, also trying to tell her that that kid is mine because we have the same temper issues. It's just ridiculous. Storytime, my sister and I live in the same house, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. So a little background information, I was 17 years old and a junior in high school, And my sister was only a year younger than me, so she was 16 and a sophomore in high school. My sister struggled a lot in school with making friends because she wasn't very likable. She had a really bad attitude. She would bully people all the time about their appearances. So naturally, this made her quite a few enemies. And I just so happened to be really good friends with the older siblings of the kids that she would bully. And they were always coming to me saying, hey, get a hold of your sister before we do. And whenever I would warn her about this, she would literally say that she didn't care, and she wishes somebody would confront her about it. Now, my sister did have a group of friends who all were notorious for loving fighting and bullying others as well. So in my head, I was like, okay, at least she has them to back her up. However, things took a turn for the worse whenever she took some inappropriate photos of a girl changing in the locker room and shared them around the whole school. This girl was a freshman, and she just so happened to be a sibling of one of the girls in my sister's group. She also had another sister who was a senior. Part 2, my sister and I live in the same house, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. So like I said, my sister took some pictures of this girl in the locker room and sent them around the whole school, and this girl's older sister was a part of my sister's friend group. I didn't know about this until rumors reached me that my sister was going to be jumped after school. So instead of going straight to my boyfriend's house after school that day, I drove her home instead. The next day, my best friend texted me in the morning saying, hey, you might want to walk around with your sister because they're going to try to get her in the locker room. So my best friend and I took turns all day watching after my sister. And sure enough, whenever we went into the locker room with her, there were 7 girls waiting to fight her. Here's the thing, I'm not a fighter. Fighting isn't fair to begin with, so I picked up this metal scooter next to me, and I just started swinging it at them. Thankfully, security guards and teachers intervened before anything terrible happened. They looked at my sister as the victim, so all of us ended up getting suspended except for her. Fast forward after my suspension, I go back to school. Everything was normal until I went to the library during lunch. All of the girls who got suspended, plus 5 more girls, were all staring at me. Like for part 3. Part 3, my sister and I live in the same house, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. So like I said, everyone except for my sister got suspended, which I don't even know how that happened. But fast forward after my suspension, I returned to school, and everything was normal until I went to the library during lunch. When I got there, those same girls that got suspended, plus 5 more girls, were all staring at me while I was walking over to my table to go study and eat. And then I see with one girl that is known for fighting, so she has to have a security guard with her at all times. Like, this guy literally had her on a leash 24/7. So when I didn't see him with her, that's when I knew it was time for me to get up and go. So I grab all my things, and I go to walk out of the library, and then all of a sudden, I feel someone yank my hair, and it was over for me. All those girls ended up getting suspended again, and I ended up getting suspended for that picture because my sister went around and told everyone in school that it was me who took the picture, and I was the one bullying that girl online through fake accounts. And my sister told everybody that I was going to be in the library during lunch that day. Her and I still live in our parents' house, but we do not speak to each other at all. Storytime about how my best friend was stealing from me. A little background information, I was 17 or 18 whenever this all happened, and I was a senior in high school. Now, my family and I had just moved to a new state, and that is where I met my best friend, who we are going to call Grace. Now, Grace and I clicked instantly, but anytime that we would hang out, she would always want to come to my house and never wanted to go to hers. Her excuse was that she had a lot of siblings and our house was super small, there was nothing to do, which I didn't really care. I had no problem with this at all, until some weird shit started happening in my house. And when I say weird shit, I mean that stuff in my house literally started disappearing. Now, at first, I wasn't that suspicious because it was just my clothes. And y'all know how things get lost in the laundry sometimes. But then it started to become stuff like my shoes and purses. So, I go and I ask my mom if she's seen any of my clothes or shoes or purses. And she goes and looks through her things to see if anything might be mixed in, but while she's doing that, she's realizing that some of her shit is missing too. So at first we're thinking that it's the cleaning lady, which I feel super bad about, but, before we blame anybody else that, we love and trust, and we think would never steal from us, we would think that it would be more logical for somebody who doesn't really know us to steal from us. So we confront her, and she denies everything, but just to be sure, we did something to test her, and she did not steal our shit. But after this, we're getting a little bit worried that other stuff in the house might be missing, so we go and look, and our jewelry is missing as well. So now we only had 2 suspects. First, we had my cousin, because she would stay over sometimes, and then we had Grace, which I thought was very unlikely because she was always with me. But nonetheless, I started to be more cautious around her. I would try to be more aware of where and what she was doing while she was in my house. And for a few days, nothing happened. So obviously, after a few times of her coming over, I was 99.9% sure that she wasn't stealing from us. But then, of course, the one night, she must have not realized that I was still awake because she got up to, I'm assuming, go to the bathroom. So I keep pretending to be asleep. And when she walked out of my room, I saw her walk towards the living room. And I decided not to go out there. Instead, I was going to wait until she came back with shit, because that would be super awkward if I just went out there and she really could have just been getting some water or something. Well, what do you know? She comes back with some of our shit and she stuffs it in her book bag. So I decided not to confront her. I actually wait till the next day to just tell my mom about it. And that's when she told me that I just wasn't allowed to speak to Grace again or see her. But I wanted my shit back, so I go to her house to surprise her. Her sister ends up answering the door, and she lets me in. She brings me into the living room, and I'm sitting on the couch, and whenever Grace comes into the living room, you all should have saw her. It looked like she's seen a fucking ghost. And then she goes, "Why are you here?" Like, girl, you're not even gonna pretend to be happy to see me after you just stole all my shit? After you just robbed me? How rude of you. No, but I actually told her that I was there to finish a project with her, so she was like, okay, we can do it in the living room. And then I tell her that I need to go to the bathroom, and I go back. I find her room. As soon as I walk in, I see my shit. So I pull my phone out, and I record everything. And she walks in her room. I don't even care. I'm literally still recording everything. Like, she is crying and saying, "Oh my goodness, my mom made me steal this stuff because we're low-key down bad right now and we need money, da-da-da-da-da, and she knew y'all were rich. And babe, do me a favor, save the sob story for someone who cares." And okay, just for shits and giggles, let's say that you are struggling. If you're struggling that bad, you would have been sold my shit, because why is everything still in your room? I threatened to call the cops on her unless she gives all my shit back, and she didn't want that, so obviously she gave it all back. Well, I did find out a few days later that she was, in fact, trying to sell my stuff. But I don't care. You should have just came to me instead of fucking somebody over who actually cared about you. Storytime about how this guy was cheating on his girlfriend with me. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 10th grade, and one day one of my friends, Josh, decided to expose this kid named Caden, because this guy Caden posted on his Snapchat story, "Anybody who's 14 and younger, unadd me. I find it so weird that you little girls are swiping up on my stories calling me cute." So my best friend Josh decides to expose this man, and he's like, weren't you just hanging out with a 12-year-old the other day? Make it make sense. So, I only add Caden because I was going to tell him that he's gross and disgusting for hanging out with 12-year-olds. But after he sent me a picture of his face saying hi, yeah, I immediately fell in love with this man. I know this looks bad. Trust me. I know. Anyways, when I started talking to this kid, I really thought that he was on some fuckboy type shit. He was actually super sweet and really kind. Like, he never asked me for nudes or anything. He also told me that he was single, so him and I start flirting. And y'all, I really thought that this man was about to be my husband. Now, of course, I low-key doubted him a little bit, so I ended up taking screenshots of every one of our messages. Well, him and I had never actually met in person, but we did have plans to meet up that weekend. So a few days before him and I are supposed to meet up, all of a sudden he literally went ghost. I didn't hear from him all day, and then when I go to Snapchat him, bro has me blocked on almost everything. He had me blocked on Instagram as well, but he had 2 accounts on Instagram and he forgot to block me on the one. And Instagram really snitched on this man, because when I clicked on his Instagram, it had the suggested accounts. Some girl with a profile picture of him and her popped up. And she had their date in her bio. They have been dating for a whole fucking year. Don't be shocked. You're shocked? You're shocked? So obviously I'm going to tell her that her man was cheating on her, but whenever I add her on Snapchat, she immediately sends me a message that says, if this is about Caden, I don't want to hear it. So instead of talking to her about Caden, I literally just sent her all of the screenshots from these past 2 weeks that him and I have been talking. The only thing I said after that was, he's been cheating on you with me. But then she literally just responds with a video of them, and she's like, okay, thank you. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I personally wouldn't stay with him, but to each their own. Anyways, so fast forward, they're still together, and I'm still blocked on everything. Story time about how I caught my teachers doing the nasty in the girls' bathroom. So a little background information, I was 14 years old and in 9th grade, and we're just gonna get straight into it. So, the one day while I was at school, I asked my teacher if I could go to the bathroom. And as I'm walking up towards the bathroom, you know how school bathrooms or any public bathroom in general, like it echoes? Yeah, well, as I got closer to the bathroom, I hear quiet grunting and heavy breathing. But of course, I thought that someone was just going number 2, okay? I did not think anything of this because duh, what else would be happening in a school bathroom? Anyways, so like I said, I walk in not thinking anything of this, and then bam, I see my history and biology teacher doing it in the open stall. The open stall. But come on, guys, it is bad enough. Y'all are doing this in a public bathroom on school property where there are hundreds of minors walking around. But in the open stall, y'all need to have some class. So obviously when I see them, I gasp. I'm like, oh, because walking into a school bathroom, that is not what I expect to see, nor do I want to see that. So then Mr. C hurries up, pulls his pants up, and then just sits on the toilet. And then my bio teacher, Miss Annabelle, she turns bright red and she's trying to cover herself, her whole body with her hands like girly pop. We already established that this is very immoral / disgusting / downright foul as but you really just have to take all of your clothes off. All of them. Not only that, but Miss Annabelle over here is married. Like, girl, shame on you. Anyway, so for some reason, the first thing that I thought to say was, I'm gonna tell your husband, even though I knew I wasn't gonna do shit. But it's literally the only thing that I could think to say in this moment. Well then, Mr. C jumps off the damn toilet, and you guys will never guess what his first thought to do is. Is it to try to de-escalate the situation? No. Is it to try to bribe me? No. Guess again. Run? Never mind, I'm just gonna tell you. He turns to her and starts crying. Not about the fact that his ass was about to be fired. No. Instead, he's like, do you love me? Be fucking for real. She did not seem to give a fuck about him, which go off, sis, because you need to be more worried about how you're gonna pay them bills without a job. Anyway, so yeah, she's hurrying up, putting her clothes on. He's crying. And then finally they both direct their attention towards me. And then they corner me and start threatening me. They're like, if you tell anybody about this, we're going to make sure that we make the rest of your high school experience a living hell. Blah, 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 this, that, and the next. Like, okay, fight for the bag. But at the same time, y'all keep digging yourselves a deeper grave. I mean, shit, you do you, but at the same time, girl and sir, get it together. Anyway, so as a freshman, I'm scared as I didn't know what that meant, and I was not about to find out. So, obviously, I tell them what they want to hear, and then finally they leave, and my crybaby ass starts having a panic attack. Okay, actually, though, I'm not a crybaby. I was just threatened by 2 grown-ass adults. Also, I wasn't even sure if anybody would believe me. But then I did remember that this is school, and there are cameras everywhere because, duh, it's the 21st century and we have weirdos and psychos out here doing shit they're not supposed to do. Cough, cough, Miss Annabelle and Mr. C. Anyway, so I'm crying the whole walk back to class, and when I walked in, the teacher ran over and she's like, oh my gosh, are you okay? What happened? And then I asked her if we could talk outside because I did not want to say what I just saw in front of the whole class. Also, I was low-key hesitant to tell anybody because Miss Annabelle had 3 kids and a husband, so I didn't want to rip her family apart. But then again, I decided not to give a because sis should have thought about them kids before she chose to take over them. Yeah. Anyways, so then after I tell her, she immediately gets a teacher to cover the class, and she takes me to the guidance office. Could y'all imagine if this teacher was friends with those other teachers? I wonder if this teacher still would have told anybody else what happened. 'Cause you know how, you want to save your friends sometimes, Captain Save-A-Ho type shit? Anyway, so they called both of them down, and I had to tell the whole situation again in front of them. Thankfully, security stood next to me because I was scared shitless from the threats that they made towards me. Well, baby, the cameras do not lie. They were caught in 4K doing shit they weren't supposed to be doing. After this, both of them were fired, and my parents decided to take me out of that school because they were not very thrown at the fact that I was threatened by 2 teachers. Storytime about how I got pregnant by my boyfriend's younger brother, and he still doesn't know. So a little background information, I'm 19 years old and I'm in college. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for about 2 years, and we're gonna call him Josh. The 2 years that we've been dating have been super rocky because he would try to hook up with other girls. Well, no, actually he wouldn't try. He would hook up with other girls. And then, him and I would break up and then we would get back together. Just your usual toxic relationship. The main reason why I kept going back to him was because he was super popular, and this made me feel like I was never going to find anybody better than him, so on and so forth. Now, Josh's brother is 21 years old, and somehow, someway, him and I started hooking up. Right around after the time I found out that my boyfriend was cheating on me with my cousin. Yes, my cousin. I'm saying that like I'm not hooking up with his brother. Anyways. Well, one day I realized that I haven't got my period in 2 months, so I took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I got pregnant by my boyfriend's younger brother, and he still doesn't know. So, like I said, my boyfriend cheated on me with my cousin, and somehow that led to me hooking up with his younger brother. Well, fast forward, one day I realized that I haven't gotten my period in 2 months, so I took a pregnancy test and it came back positive, of course. And the first thing that I did was go to Josh's brother because him and I were hooking up way more than my boyfriend and I were within the past few months. Well, we both came to the conclusion that I should just tell my boyfriend that it's his and see what happens from there. So I told my boyfriend I'm pregnant, and he was super happy, gave me this whole speech about how he's going to be a better boyfriend for me and the baby, which in simpler terms pretty much means, yay, babe, I'm going to stop cheating on you since you're pregnant, but only because you're pregnant. So now my boyfriend is raising my 1-year-old daughter who he thinks is his, and I'm still hooking up with his brother.